What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? Hopefully everyone's having a great day, great morning, great afternoon, wherever you're watching this. Phone, computer, at work. Appreciate you. We're going to have a big show today because my guy Jackson, who's now part of our operation here at 3 and Out, big college football guy, and was just at Notre Dame a couple weeks ago to watch the squad lose to Texas A&M. Sucks for him, but hey, they were in the national championship last year, so you can't cry too many tears for the Irish. But it's a massive, massive week in the college football world. We got Bama, Georgia. We got LSU, Ole Miss. We got Penn State, Oregon. We got Ohio State going to Washington. It's just a fantastic week. TCU plays Arizona State on Friday night. If you're watching this, I'm probably on a plane headed to the Northeast. So we recorded this on Wednesday, and we just kind of banged out some big stuff going on. Obviously, the games. We got Mike Gundy getting fired, Dabo Swinney. The playoffs have kind of changed the world of you can lose games, but who we like to compete for the national championship. And just kind of the overall landscape of the world that is modern day college football. So it'll be me and Jackson rattling off some stuff here coming up. But obviously, you guys know the drill. Before we dive into any football, I got to tell you about my friends, my partners, and the official ticketing app of this podcast. These games, going to a game at Bama, going to a game. I've had friends because Cal, long time ago, back when Sonny Dykes, I think, was the coach there, they played at Ole Miss, and I knew people that went out there, and they said it was incredible. Go to the Grove, the pregame tailgate. Anytime you want to go to a college football game, Happy Valley. I've been there during the spring, back when Bill O'Brien was the coach. Never been to a game there, but you ever get the opportunity to go to one of these games, GameTime has you covered. You can search by the team. You can search by the stadium. It doesn't get any easier to use. Cannot recommend my friends enough. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply again. Create an account, redeem the code JOHN. $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. Dive into Jackson. We haven't done this for a while because my man's been just grinding behind the scenes, just cutting up videos, part of our squad here at 3 and Out. And doing his own. I see him firing takes left and right. Jackson, you went to the Notre Dame A&M game. What was that, a couple weeks ago now? Probably a shitty walk outside that building. Touchdown Jesus came through for them, not for you guys. But how you doing, bro?
Good, man. No, that game was tough. I knew right when that botch hold happened that was going to be a Notre Dame thing, and that Marcel Reed and A&M were going to drive down and win that football game, a 1-point game. Obviously, you go into those games, and we saw some last week, a bunch of defensive performances in college football, and you want to see a bunch of points go back and forth. But I don't know, man. One of those games for Notre Dame, obviously I'm a Notre Dame fan, that you don't want to be in the situation they are right now where you got to win out, and you got to hope that the Big Ten gets weird, the SEC gets weird, and you kind of sneak your way in. And look, I mean, Miami's a really good team. We'll obviously get into who we think's the best team in the country right now, and A&M looks like a top 10 team in the country, but I don't know. It was an unpuzzling. It was an unsettling feeling to have Notre Dame lose that game in that way.
I want to do something. I told you let's do like 5 burning questions, 5 main topics, 5 big things. I do want to touch on. I touched on this on the podcast yesterday. What year were you born?
1999, December 9th.
So I was thinking about this. Mike Gundy was fired yesterday. He's 58, and his famous rant, I would say, was a viral moment pre-social media. Right? Twitter didn't exist. Instagram didn't exist. Well, if I'm 40, I'm a man. Well, if he's 58, that was 18 years ago. I mean, that was, I would say, a massive moment. It's one of the more viral moments for a coach, I would say, of my lifetime, right? Any sport. And it used to happen more like when I was a kid with like baseball managers, had some legendary ones, Ditka, Jim Mora, playoffs. But the Gundy thing was pretty legendary. And then he went on to just have, an incredible career. And I just wanted to start by, I was thinking about this last night because I saw some stats. One, I don't think Mike Gundy's ever going to exist again. We saw Bobby Bowden, Saban, these guys that got to coach for a long time. Those are all-time outliers. But Gundy was the rare, I played there, I was an assistant coach there. He spent basically 10 years as an assistant, 4 years as a player, and then 20. I mean, you're talking well over 30 years. He's 58. It's over half his life in one spot, which some of this stuff, like I'm all for living in the future and progress. It is kind of sad that the day and age of like the guy that's just interwoven with that franchise, we're never going to see that again. The player, the assistant coach, then the guy that coaches for that many years, it's over. And the other thing that's kind of sad is, Oklahoma State, I didn't realize how much he won. I mean, 12-6 in bowl games. He was, I think his record was like 170 and 90. He had all these like 10 and 11 and 12 win seasons. Even his bad seasons, like winning 8, 9 games. He was just winning a lot. They had T. Boone Pickens, who was kind of Phil Knight. But the rules, you couldn't just give guys hundreds of thousands of dollars. They probably, gave some guys brown bags. But he died in 2019. And he gave those comments a couple weeks ago to Dillingham. And, everyone, as the kids would say, dragged him, right? Like, oh, it's like, looking back, I think he was being like, we cannot, like, T. Boone doesn't exist anymore. I don't know what his family's doing with the fortune, but they're clearly not giving him money to buy the players like Texas Tech. And his comments were like, kind of represented, like, I think OSU's an awful job. And I do think Big 12, and we saw Dillingham, remember a couple years ago, was like begging people for money. Now they're doing a little bit better now, but still, like, I do think Big 12 in the conference relative to the Big 10, who I think has benefited the most from NIL, and the SEC that just has, would be the next in line. I think it's going to be very difficult for some of their programs. SMU will be fine, TCU will be fine, obviously Texas Tech, but OSU now, I see some of these people getting like, this guy take the job. Like, I think it's going to be difficult for them because a guy goes there. It's like, is my career? Am I going to be able to win there? So I just wanted to hat tip Mike Gundy a little before your time. That rant, you were pretty young, but obviously as you get into college football, he's a pretty legendary figure. And I saw his brother, Cale, who used to be at Oklahoma, said he's going to coach again. And I don't know. I mean, it ended pretty bad, but his resume, I mean, if you see some of these guys that can re-get jobs, you would think that a Big 12 team or maybe an ACC team, and I think his big regret has to be, Tennessee several years ago offered him the job. And I knew a buddy that was going to go with him on the personnel side. And obviously Mike had slept on it and was just very, very loyal to a school that, it was like Pat Fitzgerald. The school meant everything to him. I thought about this yesterday, the day he was fired, even though, I mean, they were like 4-11 over the last 15 games. They didn't win a conference game last year, so it had gotten pretty ugly around there. Had to be pretty emotional for him in that school. It'd be like a wife or a family member, like just getting a divorce like 40 plus years in, even if it's going bad. So sad day with Mike Gundy, who's just one of the integral characters in the sport of college football.
Yeah, you were talking about how we'll probably never see a guy that was a player or assistant that loved the school and wanted to stay there forever. Just a couple of names that came to mind that are today's, I guess that could be that version of Gundy is Brent Key of Georgia Tech, Clark Lee of Vanderbilt, Kenny Dillingham of ASU. But it's like what you're talking about with all this money in the SEC. It's like, yeah, Kenny Dillingham, you could say you want to be on Arizona State. And the more he talks about how he loves Arizona State and he's grown up to be a Sun Devil, what if Florida offers you so and so money and you have the amount of resources that Florida has or Florida State has or all these other big schools? Like, do you think that those type of guys will be loyal forever? You think money talks and it's like, okay, well, I can't turn down this offer if I'm Kenny Dillingham, but you've loved and want to build something. I respect that, Kenny Dillingham wanting to stay at ASU, but long term, like, we got to be real. If Florida comes knocking, you're going to go over there eventually.
I think both the other guys that you listed, Georgia Tech and Vanderbilt, like, how do they turn down if Kirby Smart were to ever leave or whatever, go to the NFL, if Georgia called, if Florida calls, if Sark, a couple years goes to coach the Cowboys and Texas calls, it's just, it never works out that way. Now you can stay, Gundy, he was making elite money, even though their program, but once Oklahoma left and Texas left, the writing was kind of on the wall, but who knows if Tennessee, obviously Heupel's done a really good job there. They were just in the playoffs. They're good again this year. I mean, he's running a high-level program. I like to give Gundy the benefit of the doubt that it would be the same thing if he was there. And if he was there, he would be in a place with more resources that football's just more of a priority. And he's got to be thinking, God, I was loyal and it ended up biting me in the ass. And who knows? I was listening to Josh Pate say that he had heard that it's, Gundy mailed it in a little bit. You just get to a point where it's like a inevitable divorce, but you're still living together and you barely talk. It clearly is not going well there. But yeah, I mean, I just Clark Lee Brenke, no chance. Like if you tell me in 20 years, I would bet every penny I have. I'd bet my home. I'd bet everything I have that if it goes well for the one, if it goes bad, they'll get fired. If it goes well, they just have too many opportunities. I would say both those guys, a couple more years of winning, they're just like the number one candidate on the board. Like Matt Campbell would be a guy that he stayed pretty loyal, right?
Yeah, he's been there forever, and it feels like every single name, like his name was tied to the Alabama job when Saban retired. He was tied to Florida when Napier got hired. He's always been tied to certain jobs. And
today's show is brought to you by our new presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet. Week 4 kicks off tonight with a divisional battle between Seattle and Arizona. I want you to check out these streaks from Hard Rock Bet Stats Hub. Do you know that the Seahawks, they've won 7 in a row against the Cards? That goes back to 2021. They've also won 7 in a row, just road games. So they're playing really well on the road. I typically like the home team on these short weeks, but I love Seattle -1.5 Thursday Night Football. I also like Sam Darnold, might be my favorite bet of the night, over 1.5 touchdowns. You get that in the plus money. And the Cardinals secondary is beat up, and I think they're in major trouble. If you haven't tried your first bet on Hard Rock Bet, there's still time for you to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you not only get your winnings, but you also get $150 in bonus bets. Plus, tonight on Hard Rock Bet, you can get a Thursday night parlay boost for the game. Boost your same game parlay or SGP max so your bet pays extra winnings.
As we get into the 5 burning questions heading in this weekend on the topic of Gundy, let's talk about Dabo. Gundy gets fired midseason, all this talk around Dabo Swinney, and he's kind of frustrated with the fans. And I don't know what the word is in terms of the athletic department and the school itself. I think they want to keep Swinney just because of the contract they're tied to. They can't really do anything besides if he wants to go and kind of pull like a Calipari and goes to Arkansas because, I'm tired of all this fan base is on my neck. I want to go somewhere that appreciates me, and maybe he goes to the SEC. But what are your thoughts on Dabo? Could he be the next coach? Because it's a disaster right now. I mean, this Clemson team, I picked it to win a national championship. And I kind of sit back and I'm like, wait, how does this happen? How does a team with so much talent go 1-3 and get blown out by Syracuse at home?
Yeah, he gave that impassioned rant like a week ago.
Yeah, like the week of Syracuse.
But all we've done is won like 8 of 10 years. We've won whatever many games. We win this conference. And then after he lost to Syracuse, he was basically went the other way of like, I'm a human. This really sucks. He almost was in tears. You almost felt bad for him. But Gottlieb's an Oklahoma State guy. He's like, Gundy's probably a more abrasive personality behind the scenes than Dabo. He just said over the years, Gundy had made some enemies, which happens with college football coaches because of the power. Well, when you're winning, your enemies in the university have no juice, right? You're winning 12 games, winning bowl games. They can't say shit. You start losing, those enemies gravitate toward each other and have a coalition coming for you. And that's what happened to Gundy, right? The Dabo thing, Clemson's always had unrealistic expectations before he even – I remember they thinking like national championships back with Terry Bowden when they weren't even – it was like you have a bunch of NFL guys and you're winning 8 games. Like who do you guys think you are? Dabo did change it. But like things change. And listen, he didn't necessarily change. My advice would be, and who knows, like if you told Florida fans right now you hire Dabo Swinney, they probably wouldn't be that happy, right? They'd rather have John Gruden, which to me is kind of crazy. Never coached in college. 2, he wasn't even that good the last time he coached for the Raiders. But like, okay, would you take Lane over Dabo 100%? But what if Lane is like actually being real? Like, I don't want to leave Oxford, right? We have the resources. If I was Dabo, I'd be working behind the scenes to try to give myself a landing spot because we see the way this works. Once the snowball kind of comes, this isn't like a Norvell. Like Dabo's been there forever. 23 years as an assistant, as a head coach, the pelts on the wall. So he's emotionally like fighting back. Like Norvell kind of had to take it on the chin last year, right? Give money back. Dabo still gets very defensive over this stuff. If I was him, I'd pivot. And I think there's something in coaching where if you've been there long enough and it starts going the wrong way, maybe your message, you just need a fresh start. He those two coordinators that he won the Natties with obviously got head coaching jobs and Venables and Tony. What's the Virginia coach's name?
Oh, Tony Elliott.
Yeah. So that was a trio that was a power, right? And once those guys left, it kind of doesn't feel the same. But yeah, man, it was. We are obviously on a big text thread, and our main man Shane, Syracuse alum, and they were dancing on that grave because they were. I was at the golf course, and I kind of watched the beginning of it, and then as the game went, it got delayed forever, right? So I thought when it got delayed, it was like, oh, this is gonna be a classic Clemson delayed. Syracuse goes, oh, we come out of the delay, we lay an egg, but they didn't, and I would say right now they look like turnaround. Like, no, I mean, I would say 6-6. Like, who knows? They could lose to anybody.
The only thing I would say for Dabo, obviously the whole notion on him and them starting bad is everyone's like, well, he doesn't use the portal. Yeah, that's the reason why they're losing. Well, yes. I mean, they had 3 transfers, but they're ranked like 45th in terms of like the transfer portal rankings. The only hesitancy I would have if I did grab Dabo, if I was Florida or another school, would be, hey, you're going to have to open up to what's going on in college football. You're going to have to open up to the new style of adapting and going into the portal. Not saying you got to be like a Bill Belichick and grab 45 guys or Deion Sanders and grab 15. But if you're Florida and you're Dabo Swinney, you're telling me you can't grab 8 of the top 50 transfer portal guys. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's something.
Well, he runs like a company that he views it. If I don't get to vet the guy when they're like 16, 17, 18, I don't touch him. And their big thing is like the type guys they bring into the family, right? It's like, bro, you have to learn. All these other programs are quote unquote vetting these guys in the transfer portal. You're probably not landing someone in the transfer portal too that doesn't at a school like that. Like Ohio State, think who they got in the transfer portal. Guys from like Alabama, right? Or guys within their conference that they know. You don't have to just get like random dude. Like you should have that's part of your personnel department. So I'm with you. Like but if he won't do some self reevaluation, then maybe it's just going to end really badly and no one will touch him. But I think it's going to get uglier as the year goes because all it would take, like Syracuse, obviously a solid program, but you lose to one of these like not very good teams. They play North Carolina this week.
Yeah, no, they have a bye week and they play North Carolina next week. Yeah,
something like that happens, like UNC beats them, then it'll feel like Dabo, I just jump ship. And it'd be one of those where it's just like a clean break. The buyout stuff. It's like, hey, you can go Calipari style. And I think he'd have to entertain that. And it's not because like he can get so defensive. I won championship. Yeah, that's the Pat. That's Deshaun Watson, whose NFL career is over. Like, what are we talking about? Trevor Lawrence. Like, Trevor Lawrence has been in the league for how many years? And he won the championship when he was a true freshman when he beat Alabama. Now, he'd be like, well, we were in the playoffs last year. Kind of lucky. I mean, you started the season, you lost by 100 to Kirby's probably 7th best Georgia team.
Doesn't help that his quarterback stinks, too. I mean, Cade Klubnik's been horrible. If he does go to Florida, it's like,
he's missed on quarterbacks now. Back to back.
Since Trevor Lawrence, DJU. I think they had Hunter Johnson, who was a bad player. So, yeah, you're right. Speaking of quarterbacks, a guy that Oklahoma didn't miss, but a tragic injury. Oklahoma quarterback John Mateer out for 3+ weeks. Broken bone on the right throwing hand. I'm not much of a doctor, but that type of injury with the team with so much momentum, and I guess the hindsight positive about this is it's now when they have a bye week. They play Kent State next week. It's a bummer about Red River, but who knows if he grinds it out and maybe he plays that football game, but they're going to need him to throw the football against that Texas defense. He's going to be out 3 weeks before that grueling start of their schedule where they got South Carolina, Mizzou, LSU, Alabama, Tennessee. What was your take and response to this? Because, this guy was the face of college football, and now it seems like Oklahoma's in a little bit of a panic after this injury kind of came to be.
I'm always hesitant with the weeks. It's like, are we sure 3 weeks? That seems pretty optimistic.
Seems fast. Yeah.
Yeah, especially throwing hand. I do wonder, I'm sure Venables, and they'll talk about it this week, I guess because they have the bye week, maybe their press conference schedule is a little off. That's why they were able to hide it. The adrenaline coming out of that game. Maybe he got hit in the hand, didn't even realize, played through it, and the next day it's swollen, he can't move it. And a little lucky they have a bye this week in Kent State, but it really sucks for that Red River game that all of a sudden was looking like, because if you're Oklahoma, you got to be thinking, we're a playoff team. We got one of the best defenses. We got this quarterback who can run and throw. We just got a lot of good vibes. And now all of a sudden we could just lose to Texas in the shitty version of Arch, and all of a sudden then our back's against the wall, and do we rush the guy back? It sucks. I mean, that was I don't know what else to say besides that's I guess could be worse. It's not like a devastating end of the year injury, but broken bone on your hand. I'm sure he's gonna have to wear a splint or a cast for a minute. You never know how it recovers. What if he can't grip the ball in 3 weeks? Really sucks for him. I mean, because I don't want to say like national championship, but if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're like, well, we got a high level defense that translates. And if our offense is just solid with this quarterback, why couldn't we be in like the Final Four? And you just lose, all of a sudden you lose to Texas and he's not ready the next week. You could just lose a couple games in the SEC and it's just too much to overcome when he does come back, because they could easily lose a game with him. I mean, hell, they had 10 sacks and the game was close last week. Now, Auburn, it turns out, I think is pretty solid this year, but which was a really good win. They've had a couple really good wins at home, but they got some tough road games. And obviously the Texas game is just the neutral site game. So who is their backup quarterback? The little guy from last year?
Yeah, so it's the sophomore Michael Hawkins Jr., which I mean, we talk about Arch playing bad and how dominant Oklahoma's defense is. This situation versus last year, Michael Hawkins Jr., who's a sophomore, and he's kind of that same athletic dual threat quarterback. He's in a better situation this year because, one, you got Ben Arbuckle, who's a better play caller than what they had last year. Two, when he was playing Texas, their top 5 wide receivers were hurt. So now you've got more wide receiver health back this year. Your offensive line's improved. Now, the one thing would be he played in Red River last year against that Texas defense, and he looked like he was seeing ghosts.
I was there.
So how is that going to be?
It was atrocious.
Yeah, it was very bad last year. So look, you hope that he improves this year on that front. But my biggest concern with them is they can't run the football at all. I mean, Jaden Ott, the Cal transfer, we talked in the preseason, how excited, Nagy talking about this Cal transfer guy coming in and what he did with Jaden Ott at Cal last year. And this year, he's only had like 9 carries for 17 yards, hasn't really played. So it's like you don't have a running game to complement with Hawkins Jr. Like, yeah, you want to be able to run the football with him, what Mateer was usage with Hawkins, but you can't run the football with him, and you want to have a quarterback that couldn't throw the ball at all against Texas, had a couple throws maybe against Auburn. Like, it's just kind of a skeptical situation for Oklahoma where Hawkins is getting into a better situation, but like you're not helping him in terms of the running game that you've had before. So it's just kind of a puzzling situation for Hawkins Jr. You just kind of hope and pray that I don't know, Mateer gets back, but do you want to rush him with the schedule you have moving forward? It just kind of all becomes a puzzling situation to a team that basically won September.
Yeah, tough spot.
Super tough spot. Let's move on to the biggest games of the weekend. 6 Oregon at 3 Penn State. The question is, will James Franklin finally win the big one? He's 1-17 against top 10 Big Ten opponents, or will Oregon prove they're the new national power?
You know what's funny? I was just thinking about this, is that like some coaches that are really polarizing, like after he lost to Florida State, everyone's like, fire Kalen DeBoer. He beat Georgia last year. So like the moment you win one of those games, it's like that's just a huge win on your resume. Remember Brian Kelly, I think his first year, beat Saban in a walk-off touchdown. And it was pretty sweet, like the corner of the end zone, like a quick little out, and it was awesome. So it's like sometimes when you just get a big win early, it just takes, we can bitch and moan like, oh, he doesn't win enough games, but no one can argue like, can you win the big game? And both those guys are bad examples because Kalen won a bunch of big games at Washington, beating, Dan Lanning and Kyle Whittingham and Steve Sarkisian. And obviously Kelly has won big games over the years with Notre Dame. But this guy has been at a program that has just pumped out NFL guys that I think we all think is really good, which is crazy because they feel as good, if not better, than last year. And they're missing 2 guys. Abdul Carter and Tyler Warren are like lock first-team all-rookie players, right? They're elite. Both those 2 guys, elite players. So, it's not very often since Lanning has been there, and honestly, since Mario, that like Oregon has been like a legit, we don't think you're going to win this game. So it's like kind of an easy spot for him to kind of rally the troops. If James can't, eventually you're either going to win a game like this, or maybe he's never going to. It's going to be one of those, he just can never beat anyone good. So I got burned by them against you guys last year when Aller threw that thing across his body. That's the thing. He plays in these games like Ohio State last year. It's like he's right there. Notre Dame. He's either winning or like he's down a touchdown, but he's on the goal line. And then you look back, you're like, how did he lose that game? Or how did he not? How did they end up just running out the clock and they didn't even score? It's last year, remember, they got stuffed at the goal line against Ohio State, and then Ohio State ran the ball out. Against Oregon in the championship game, I remember they kind of, you could tell Oregon was better, which that's why it was kind of ironic that then Oregon got curb stomped against Ohio State. They didn't even look like, they look like a different team. I mean, I want to pick Penn State here, but I've been burned by him a couple times. It would be just a nice win. Everyone could exhale a little bit because then I think they win this game, especially if they won it by like a touchdown or more. And look, the better team. I think a lot of people would start being like, okay, them, Miami, whoever the cream of the crop is in the SEC, like this is the top 3 or 4 teams that can win the national championship. And I think people are still hesitant on Penn State. This is a huge game for them. This is big. And that place is awesome, right? Night game, whiteout. I just think Oregon, it just doesn't feel like very often they get to just kind of like let it fly.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if it's not now, then when is it going to be for James Franklin? I mean, this is a quarterback coming in that hasn't had a road game like this in his career. So that's like the biggest question mark with Dante Moore. But you've seen him the last couple of games, even though they haven't played anybody, like some of the placements on these balls, the accuracy from him, he doesn't look like Will Stein and his ability to develop quarterbacks is pretty insane. Like he's one of the more underrated coaches in college football. And they got a freshman at wide receiver. So you wonder how he's going to adapt against Penn State's defense. And like you said, like a whiteout game, they're coming off of a bye week. Oregon's not, but I don't know, man. This Oregon team and how talented they are in the trenches on both sides and Dan Lanning's ability to recruit. Like you're right. I mean, the pressure's all on James Franklin. You'd rather win this game versus having to win a must win at Ohio State, something they haven't done since 2011, something that even James Franklin hasn't even done. Even when they had Saquon and all those studs on offense, they still were not able to. You talk about that game too, when JT Barrett, the last second threw that pass, I forget to who, maybe Garrett Wilson or Terry McLaurin. But this to me, you're right. It's the biggest game for Penn State. I kind of would love to see Oregon win this game just to see the panic of James Franklin and see how much sleep he can't get for the rest of the season if they do lose this football game. But watch out for Oregon's got some studs that Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon, he'll be a guy that's playing on Sundays. He could be a guy that explodes and opens up the running game for Oregon.
I think the problem, whoever loses this game, is throughout a season, it's inevitable that good teams will just be like, hey, tie game against Rutgers fourth quarter. And every once in a while, remember, I think Iowa beat one of the Urban Meyer teams. Like there are big upsets in these big conferences because it's hard to play your best football 12 weeks. But even if you get upset, if you're Penn State and you win this game, it's like, okay, you lose. Let's say you lose a random game to one of these teams on the road that you probably are a big favorite. We go, oh, you just didn't take them as seriously, but we take you seriously. We know what your ceiling is. This is a really important game for Penn State from a ceiling standpoint. I want to like him, but I'm with you. I think, Lanning got something pretty special there. And the thing with Moore is, athletically, arm strength, like he's an elite blue chipper. Everyone's, loves Bryce Underwood. Like that's kind of what Moore is, in terms of like the total package of what he can bring to the table. No one remembers watching him a couple years ago with Chip Kelly's offense, and he was atrocious, but he was thrown in on a bad team in a year when the Pac-12 was good, and it went bad. And then he kind of it's pretty rare to go to Oregon, reset. He was supposed to go to Oregon out of high school. He was a huge recruit, and then Chip somehow flipped him because I think he realized I could start there. And he got to kind of sit behind Dylan Gabriel last year. And by all accounts, I mean, it's crazy how positive. Obviously, he's playing well, but the way they've been talking about him really since the spring.
Feels like, too, a lot of top quarterbacks, Nussmeier, Arch, all this preseason hype on a bunch of quarterbacks haven't been playing to the expectations. And a guy that's kind of been under the radar that hasn't played as well versus bad competition is Drew Aller. Like that's another name for him. It's like, okay, this is a big game for you to kind of get that national spotlight. What will this offense look like? You mentioned Tyler Warren. They're going to be able to run the football with Allen and Singleton. They ran for over 300 yards against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game, still lost that game. So I'm wondering from Penn State's offensive standpoint, are they going to be able to throw against Oregon? Like, are these transfer wide receivers, are they going to mesh well? Because it's easy to mesh well against FIU, Villanova, and all these teams, but we're 3rd and 8. What are you going to do, against this Oregon defense? And Drew Aller, like, This is like a Showtime type of game for him in terms of an NFL draft standpoint. I don't know where you stand on him, but this is like a prove it game for him when all the other quarterbacks are kind of down. This is like a Heisman type of moment for both quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, to me, he's got 3 or 4 games this year that are going to define his draft status. So I don't know. He makes me nervous.
Speaking of shit the bed and possibly disappearing, a guy that not too hot in Alabama right now is Kalen DeBoer. They go into Georgia, 17 Alabama at 5 Georgia. The question is, can Kalen DeBoer finally win a big road game? He's 1-0 against Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart's 1-6 against Alabama all time. Or will Georgia's longest home streak, 33-game win streak, continue to hold against Alabama?
I will say this: the stench and the stink of the Florida State loss, I think, is worse because people expected Florida State to really suck, and I think Florida State's going to be pretty good. So I think that game could age pretty well. And listen, they got their butt kicked. The eye test was bad, right? That was part of it. The eye test was like kind of like the Ravens against the Lions. Like you kind of got worked. It wasn't like 100-0, but it was whatever. They lost by a couple touchdowns, but it looked worse than the final score. I'll say this about Kalen: he beats good coaches. When he's gone head to head, we said this with Lanning, with Kyle Whittingham. He's just last year with Kirby Smart. Like he's done really well in these type moments. Now I don't really. The young quarterback has looked better. Like Alabama's clearly looked a lot better since they played Florida State. Now they haven't played anybody. Georgia really got tested. Like Georgia showed something. Like they got like that win against Tennessee was impressive. Like they easily could have lost. Not only the way it ended, but they were down 21-7 on the road. You probably couldn't hear yourself think. That thing could have got away from them. So the medal, the championship kind of mindset that Kirby brings, it's Saban like. So I think there's probably more mentally tough in Georgia. Like you said, they're 1-6. You'd be like, well, Kirby's been there like a decade. They don't play each other that often. Like for a long time, they were just playing each other in the conference championship game. It's not like on a yearly rotation like LSU. So it's hard. Like, I'm so used to Bama, LSU, or LSU, Florida, or Georgia, Tennessee. This game, when we do get it in the regular season, we've got it back-to-back years now. I think it was pretty stunning last year the way it transpired. Now, I know they came storming back, and Carson Beck just started throwing bombs. I mean, it's kind of like Russell Wilson. You just throw go routes and post routes, you're going to hit some. Or when you hit them, you can score touchdowns, and then you could be down 28 points, and all of a sudden it's a one-score game. But like you're up 28-0 on an opponent. Like they came out the gates. That's the Kalen DeBoer thing. I remember when they beat when he was at Washington, he beat Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. They start so fast. If Bama starts fast, they're winning this game. Like, I don't see Bama like down 17-7 and coming back. But if you tell me this is one of your Kalen DeBoer's great game plans and it's like 13-3 at the end of the first quarter, obviously you have to hold on. That's the way usually these games play out. But I like Bama wins if they start fast. If they don't and they're trailing, I'm out. You could argue live bet this game if that's the way you want to take it. But with DeBoer, like they start fast. They did against in the Final Four against Sark. Like he jumps out to leads because his game plans, him and Grubb, historically have been elite.
Yeah, and it feels like when they don't start fast, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Tennessee last year, that's when they tend to the effort defensively gets weak. The self-inflicted penalties. DeBoer kind of is a little quiet, pacing up and down the sideline.
Well, that's why he's not a rah-rah. Like Kirby's a rally the troops guy, right? Saban,
100%.
Urban, these guys are crazy SOBs. The Harbaugh brothers, Dan Campbell, like Andy Reid bumping into Travis Kelce, which isn't even Andy's style, but he's got it in his back pocket. That is Kalen DeBoer is not a yeller and a screamer. It's clear, right? To me, he's more of a slow, steady, offensive, cerebral mind, which he gets ahead of you, then he starts working his magic. He's behind. Kirby, fine, right? Dabo, historically, when his teams were good, he has a lot of juice. It's not really Brian Kelly. I don't know if his screams are heard, but he'll start screaming at you.
Yeah, he'll be screaming a ton. That's one thing too about this game. We talked preseason about Alabama and Georgia. The one thing that you can't really harsh on, the biggest question mark for both teams was the quarterbacks. Ty Simpson's looked impressive. It wasn't his fault against Florida State. His offensive line basically got bullied. And then Gunnar Stockton, that 4th and 8th throw he had to London Humphreys in that Tennessee game on the line, absolute dime over the shoulder throw. I think it's going to be interesting to see which quarterback, but more importantly, it seems like this year for Georgia, Alabama, there's not a lot of buzz on both sides of the offensive defensive line. And maybe it was like last year around this time when Georgia, Alabama played is when we found out the names of Michael Williams and Jalen Walker, and they kind of like soared throughout the rest of the season. But it feels like in this game, obviously, the trenches battle, whoever wins the trenches is going to win. But both offensive lines and defensive lines are shaky. So you wonder, I guess, which quarterback's going to perform and who's going to kind of be dominant on both sides.
You're probably deeper on the like the college Reddit boards and the rumors. Yeah, I see the Landry Kiffin thing, but one thing I've heard people say is Carson Beck wasn't that well liked toward the end. Like the players didn't like him, and Gunnar Stockton's like one of the dudes. And that was a big like selling point this offseason. And it's like, well, I'm watching Carson Beck in Miami. He actually looks fine. Like, yeah, he might be a weird guy, might not have all the friends on the team, but like if you're better at football than this guy, it does give you the better chance to win. And that's where it was huge for Gunnar Stockton in that Tennessee moment to go on the road and win that game. Because one thing to be liked, inevitably it's like, can this guy help us win or not? And he made huge plays. And people were very critical of his greatest teams with Stetson Bennett. Like, is this guy good enough? This double walk on, like, what the hell are we doing? This is Georgia, Matt Stafford, Aaron Murray, like guys you can draft really high. Even Carson Beck was discussed like a number 1 overall pick. Gunnar Stockton, but if he can, like, you're not playing Tua, right, or Jalen Hurts or one of his Bryce Young. Like, this is Ty Simpson, who, again, solid player, but I mean, I don't think anyone's viewing him a couple games into his career as like a top pick by any means. He has more, I would say, of like a Stetson Bennett type feel to him. Which, again, Stetson Bennett, remember in their championship game, had some incredible throws. So he's still in the league on the Rams, the third-string quarterback. I just think that whatever quarterback, one of these quarterbacks is going to shit the bed in one of these games. And I don't know who.
Yeah. And to your point, I feel like even Ty Simpson in Alabama, Brian Grubb and Kalen DeBoer kind of rally around a guy like him that's a pocket passer versus Jalen Milroe. And maybe it was the offensive scheme, maybe it was just Jalen Milroe not being able to read the short intermediate routes, but it felt like any time that something wasn't open, Milroe was so like eager to get out of the pocket and run. Whereas Ty Simpson's kind of sat back. They've got a good receiver trio. Like, both sides have really good wide receivers and tight ends. So that's what's going to be fun about this matchup is, like you said, like, who's going to kind of step up between those two quarterbacks and who's going to kind of shit the bed. A lot of answers for both teams. Like, this could go either way, but you just at Georgia at home, it's just like it's tough for me not to root for Georgia and lean Georgia there. But another SEC game, LSU at Ole Miss. You talked about it. Landry Kiffin, Lane Kiffin's daughter, the week of. I don't know if that's a Lane thing. I don't know if Landry Kiffin wants to just kind of stir the pot or maybe get more fame because she's obviously been in the discussion the entire time. Well, she hard launched Whit Weeks, who's the linebacker from LSU, had 18 tackles last year against Ole Miss, 1 sack. This is kind of another game, too, like Alabama, Georgia, we'll get a lot of answers, but LSU, more importantly, kind of fraud. Some are saying fraudulent. That game against Clemson looked impressive on the road, but Clemson hasn't panned out. Ole Miss is kind of, on the rise. Can they expose LSU as pretenders? But this, to me, the question for this game is LSU a legit playoff national contender, or will Ole Miss expose them as pretenders in this matchup?
I would say if LSU is, they win this game. I mean, their defense has been unreal. Offensively, I mean, a couple people thought that he was a top pick. I don't know if his skill set historically is like a top 10 pick, but he might just be the best of this group in Nussmeier. Helps, he's clearly like a coach's kid, super smart, but his skill set, to me, it's much closer to some of the average guys than it is like the elite tools guys. Now, football is about more than that, right? But I also think if, Lane wins this game, he would have beat Brian Kelly 2 of the last 3 years. When Brian has NFL play. Did he beat him last year? I forget, but he's definitely He's kind
overtime.
of owned Brian Kelly, right? And Brian's had Jaden Daniels and Nussmeier, and now it's one thing like he loses Dart, he's got this quarterback situation, but also you win this game, all of a sudden, to me, he becomes the number one candidate if I'm Florida, right? And then I think that kind of just builds on each other, on itself. You were telling me his documentary's coming out. He clearly quit drinking. He looks fantastic. He's lost a bunch of weight. He does feel like a different guy. And there is no disputing like his offensive prowess now, because defensively they're clearly not as good, but scoring points, he has dominated with different coordinators. A couple years ago, right, Levy was his OC. He's now at Mississippi State. Like, Lane's really good, and I'm sure he gets this from his dad. He's been around football his whole life, putting together staffs, different guys. I just think you win this game, complete ownage over Brian Kelly, and we just start talking about this guy of like, I don't know how you'd argue that his status as one of the top coaches, like he's not coaching at Texas or Georgia or Ohio State. Like this is a place that I think when he won double-digit games a couple years ago, back-to-back years, the first time it ever happened in the history of the program. So, and he's doing it, new transfer portal king or whatever he's known as. I just have a hard time picking Lane against it. Now, at home, he's kind of been bitching this week that the game's during the day. He's like, if we were at LSU, that thing would be a night game. If we're at Georgia, that thing's going to be a night game. And they play here, the sun's out. But Lane's pretty good at doing those jabs. That's why if you told me, like, did he tell her to do that to know, like, his fan base would start fucking with him? I think he's involved, because it's not like he doesn't know his daughter's dating her. I mean, anyone that follows the family on social media, they're a pretty tight-knit group.
If he does this I think one thing about Lane Kiffin that's underrated too is his ability to grab quarterbacks out of everywhere. Like their quarterback that's going to play this game. Not a lot of people know him. He played the last 2 games against Tulane and Arkansas, but his name's Trinidad Chambliss, and he was a transfer from Ferris State, Division II national champion. He's kind of coming to the scene, and he came in spring transfer portal, and a bunch of people were like, "Who's this guy from Ferris State? Who's this Division II guy? Oh, well, Austin Simmons is going to start. 19-year-old, 4-star." Like he was the backup behind Jackson Dart. He gets hurt against Kentucky, throws 2 interceptions. This Chambliss guy comes in, and the team around him, the fan bases around him, their offense looks a lot more explosive. And he's kind of that dual threat. He's 6'1". If he goes in and beats Brian Kelly with this guy, a Division II transfer coming in who's only played 2 games, played Division II. Well, you got Garrett Nussmeier, who played all last year. He's had a rough start, but he's got more, starts under his belt in the SEC. Like, you want to talk about stunting your nuts on the SEC and on Brian Kelly, you win this football game. Oh, my gosh. Like,
I would say, though, and I've been a part of smaller schools at Cal Poly and Fresno State, you do have guys that are playing there that could go to a top program and be an immediate impact guy. And I think that's the one thing cool about the transfer portal is you get, like, Jared Verse from Albany going to Florida State, or this situation where before he probably just would have played at Ferris State, right, his whole career, and like some scout bangs the table and he goes in the 6th or 7th round. And you're like, what? Who they draft? And nowadays, like that guy is just like the D1 AA guys and the D2 guys. I know the way these personnel departments would just give me who's the MVP of the league, who's the stat leader. We should just get some evaluation on him, see if it's worth it. And then boom, you start DMing them. And you don't know. I bet when they did it, it was like, this is kind of a diamond. They didn't expect him to start, right? Because like you said, Jackson Dart's backup, highly recruited guy. But hey, if we can find a depth piece as a backup quarterback from Montana or Ferris State or whatever, let's do it. And that's what sucks about those little schools. They never had to. If you're a Ferris State 20 years ago and you had a potential 7th round pick or whatever, you didn't need to worry about some SEC school calling them. That never happened.
That's one thing I do think is cool about the portal is this year seeing it. Like John Mathieu went from Washington State, explodes. Joey Aguilar from App State to Tennessee, explodes. This guy, like, I think it is cool. It sucks for the smaller schools.
Cool for the kid.
Lose those guys, but it is cool, like, to see those guys get the opportunity and transfer in. And I just think overall, like, programs like Ole Miss, programs like Oklahoma that are going and experience these guys at smaller schools, even Indiana with Fernando Mendoza and what they did with Curtis Rourke, like, experience is always going to have an experienced quarterback that's seen a lot of football, no matter what the level is. To your point about Division II, they're going to have immediate success versus a guy like Austin Simmons that, he played against Georgia last year, had that sick drive, but he's 19 years old. Like, it's going to take him a little developmental stuff to get to the level of Chambliss. LSU wise, you saw LSU Brian Kelly break out about after that Florida game. They had 5 interceptions. The defense has been outstanding with Blake Baker. You think Brian Kelly this game with Ole Miss, they can't their rushing defense is horrible. Like the emphasis to run the football, it feels like for Brian Kelly to just get that monkey off his back. It's like, can we run the football against Ole Miss, or am I just going to get discussed about this the entire season? Like their offense has been kind of questionable, and you wonder if a game like this they can't get it going against Ole Miss if it's going to go for the rest of the season.
Yeah, to me, if their offense can't get going, then they're not a national title contender. And I think if they were to lose this game, you would start questioning like, like they could lose other SEC games. That game against Bama would be hard. You would just start saying that I wouldn't trust them as much. What's crazy to me is LSU. It felt like Louisiana always had like DBs, D linemen, running backs. How are they not just have some sweet running back? I don't get it. What's it? Justice Haynes, the running back from Michigan that was the transfer from Bama. That's the other thing. The transfer portal, you should be all over a guy or two to be able to land just a serviceable, like, yeah, this guy's like a 5th-round pick. I'm not even talking like 2nd-round pick, but they can't run the ball. Like, that's a little concerning, which wouldn't you're a Notre Dame guy. I mean, it always hung his hat on just running the ball down people's throats at Notre Dame.
Yeah, they got 2 guys where you're right. I mean, LSU went out in the portal for the first time. They grabbed a bunch of DBs, grabbed a bunch of receivers, and Durham's a good player, but it's almost like the offensive line has issues more than even Durham. So, I mean, yeah, you could pass the ball all you want, but at the end of the day, like you said, you got to establish the run game.
Saban said this forever when he transitioned over the last like 6 years, is as the game changed, even if you're the best defensive coach, and he clearly was, and you have great defensive players, you need to score points in this modern day football. The way it's officiated, you can't just crush people over the middle. Your players get tossed out of games. So you can't intimidate as much physically. You've got to. And what did they do? What did Alabama do under him? They got heavy on offense, like emphasized it more than ever. And, obviously LSU's offense, like if you put the Jaden Daniels offense with this defense, I would say they would be the best team in the country. And that's where Miami is like their defense is elite and their offense looks good. We don't see any like the elite offenses also have the good defenses. Everything's just been a little off kilter, you would say, the last couple of years with like a complete team. Ohio State found it at the end last year.
Yeah, I agree.
But they were also pretty rare, right? They had like this really, really experienced defense with all these like 4th and 5th year guys that have been there forever. And then the quarterback got hot and they had, incredible offensive skill guys. There's not a team like that in the country, I would say. Like as good top to bottom as Ohio State, right? Ohio State last year, when they were playing well, is better than any team this year, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I think is great about this year. It feels more wide open than last year, which has kind of been good transition for the 16 playoff that's going to get hopefully figured out in the offseason. And then that will probably go next year, which it's great. More football, the academic calendar, the transfer portal. I don't know how it's going to deal with. But the last burning question, who in your mind is the best team in the country right now? After September, heading into week 5, who do you think is the best team in college football right now?
From just a talent standpoint, you would say the most complete team would probably be Miami. But their coach, of all these top guys, is the biggest wild card. I mean, we can talk shit about Brian Kelly or Kalen. I mean, those guys have won a lot more big games than this guy. This guy's blown a lot of them. And excellent recruiter. The guy knows talent. Give him credit on hiring this defensive coordinator. Their defense looks incredible. The Carson Beck's thing, which I thought was a joke. I mean, it's been a pretty good move for him. It's not like Mario's cutting the check. Why does he care whether the guy's making $1 million or $4 million? Not his problem. But like, do I trust that guy playoff game after playoff game after playoff game? Listen, say what you want. Like I was down on Ryan Day, but even going into the playoffs last year, like he had won big games before, right? And been in a lot of big games. Like Mario feels like he's lost every one of his big games up until this year, but they look pretty good right now. They definitely look pretty good. And, the ACC is not as hard, so they should be a little, I would say, fresher than whatever SEC team or Big Ten team that they face. If they run the table or even go 12-1, assuming they win the ACC championship game, they will get a bye. So, and you got a defensive line like it's just like Carson Beck, Mario Cristobal. Like, can you envision those guys on the podium January, whatever, holding the trophy? That'd be pretty quick. That'd be pretty nuts.
Their odds are still high too. I think they're like plus 1,400. So I think the sports books are still even a little hesitant, even though they look like the most complete team. In your point, I think the one question mark to your point about Mario Cristobal and the coaching decisions, they haven't been on the road this season. They go at Florida State next week. So that's one of those games on the road, tight game, back and forth, comes down to the wire. Like, how does Mario Cristobal, does he make the correct coaching decision than what he did against Syracuse last year when they probably should have went for it? They kicked the field goal and they ended up not getting the ball back for the rest of the game. So those little things, like that's the one question mark I would have with Miami, but they look so complete. Like
was it Georgia Tech last year where they ran the ball, fumbled, and then the dude drove and scored?
Yeah, they should have needed.
He had one of those moments in Oregon too. He's just had. I guess part of it's probably a little unfair how critical we are, but he's had some historic last minute like epic losses, like that are of all the top teams. No, James Franklin has lost to good teams, but I don't remember like legendary losses. Like Mario has multiple of them at Oregon and obviously the one last year to Georgia Tech. He literally could have just kneeled it and won the game, runs it, fumbles, and then the dude hits 2 passes and he loses. That was crazy. Now, in fairness, it's not like their team was going to win the Natty last year because their defense sucked. And their defense is clearly a lot better. And that's the one area where you can just flip a switch like Texas Tech or Miami. You buy the right players, you buy the right coach. You can flip it way faster at the highest level. LSU this year would, the defensive coordinator was there last year too, but it's like you can just do it quicker than you used to, where it's like, oh, we got to wait for a couple of recruiting classes. It's like you wait one spring and you're like off and running.
People in the comments are probably wondering, why didn't you pick Ohio State? Why didn't you pick Georgia? I think Ohio State, you talked about, or you're going to talk about it with Stuckey that released on Friday. Ohio State at Washington, that'll be kind of a test with Julian Saint going on the road. I think Georgia probably has the most impressive win so far at Tennessee, the way they battled in that football game. But what would you say, I guess, to the people that are like, well, Ohio State, why aren't they the best team right now? Or Georgia or some other teams? It's kind of like you can't really pinpoint who's the best team right now because, like you said, like now we're starting to get into conference play. This weekend, we're going to start to get answers. And then obviously when October, November starts to play out, like it just feels so wide open this year.
That's what I think's cool. Like last year in basketball, remember, it was like 4 1 seeds made the Final Four. And for really most of the Saban era, you kind of knew by now, like top 3 or 4 teams. It does feel like, what the hell's the difference between Bama, Georgia, LSU, and Ole Miss? If you told me any one of those 4 were in the Final Four, I wouldn't be stunned at all. Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State. If you told me any of those teams were rolling in the playoffs in the national championship, would not be surprised. I mean, I just listed 7 teams. I haven't even factored in, like, unlike last year, it turns out Boise and even ASU, they weren't, like, Texas Tech has way more NFL guys, especially on defense, than those 2 teams. It's like, why couldn't Texas Tech just take down, like, a Penn State in the second round? Like, that's on the table. Florida State, like you said, they play each other. What if Florida State's good? I mean, a couple years ago, they went 13-0, or I guess 13 because they won the conference championship game. And the only reason they weren't in the champion or the Final Four was the quarterback shattered his leg. But now looking back, it's like, God, well, the 49ers, Ronaldo Green starter, Fisk and Verse, Keon Coleman, like that team was loaded with NFL guys that start on playoff teams, some of the best teams in the NFL. So you could argue it's like legitimate 12 deep. And the team, whatever the non-Power 4 team, like what a waste of a spot because that team's got no shot. None.
It sucks. It sucks.
Like
I love South Florida. Great win at Florida, but you got rolled against Miami. And to your point, like you didn't even mention Indiana's better this year. What if Michigan gets in at 10-2? They look better with Bryce Underwood, but Sherrone Moore. I don't know how good of a coach.
I think the Big Ten, the last couple of years with NIL, like watching, we were texting about like Rutgers, Iowa, is clearly better. It's just deeper. That the SEC used to always say that, like, oh yeah, you guys got Ohio State or Michigan if they're good, right? Your top teams are as good as ours, but like 3 through 8, like it's way harder to play Ole Miss, right? Or even a shitty Florida team, like buckle up. I feel like the Big Ten is pretty good. I mean, watching Rutgers is not bad, right? Iowa, their offense sucks, but they are a tough team to play. Like Minnesota is going to be solid. Obviously, adding Washington. And now that USC is clearly better. I think the Big Ten's the last 18 months is better than it has been in terms of the aggregate, the whole. Notre Dame. I mean, I think if Notre Dame runs the table, they're clearly. I mean, they lost 2 teams that are probably going to go win a combined 20, 21 games.
I feel like they might have to join a conference soon, though.
Well, they're going to. Big Ten.
Yeah. Big Ten or SEC. Do you think it even matters? I know the SEC, the ACC are doing this, which I like the non-conference game and them having, I don't know if it's going to be in the middle of the season or beginning, but they're going to have to play another conference. Do you think it matters that which conference is better in college football? Because I guess that's kind of a way for the CFP. You get an advantage in terms of more teams, you get more money. It just seems like every day we always talk back and forth, Big Ten versus SEC, where I'm like, does it really matter? Or it's just kind of bragging rights, I guess.
Well, I think the current way it does with the 12 teams, perception matters a lot. So it's like the ACC and the Big 12, especially the perception that their conference isn't as good. Like, oh, they're just getting one team. It's kind of like universally accepted. The ACC, like it would take Florida State and Miami basically being, they can only lose to each other and then win every other game. And then the other team would have to beat that team in the conference championship game. But we don't talk about that like with the Big Ten. Even Indiana, once they beat Illinois, it's like, oh, maybe Indiana's real again. So I think that, and they both those conferences have earned it, but I do think the perception really, really matters. And it's correct. Like I do believe the Big Ten and the SEC are better than the other two. Like the Big 12 is clearly to me like Texas Tech is probably pretty good. We'll see TCU, ASU, but there is a drop off. Like when I watch Colorado, like how many games would Colorado win if you put them in the Big Ten or the SEC? Like I don't think they would go to bowl games. And who knows? We'll see what their final record is this year. I mean, they might be struggling to get 6-7 wins, but like that's where the middle tier team, like let's say Colorado wins 6-7 games. Like, are they going 6 or 7 games if they're playing the SEC? No shot. And I'm not picking on Dion. I could use ASU the same thing. If I put this ASU team in the SEC or the Big Ten, like they might go 10-2 or 9-3 this year. Well, I saw them lose to Mississippi State on the road, right? So what would happen when what would they do against Florida's defense? Who's, well, who knows? Florida might tap out here in a week or two because their coach gets fired. But like, would you say if ASU had to go on the road to Florida this year, like they would score many points against that defense? Probably not. And that's no shot at ASU. I mean, but that's the SEC. It's like, I bet if I texted an NFL buddy, like how many NFL guys does Florida have on defense? He'd be like, that are upperclassmen or lowerclassmen? Because probably 10 out of 11 guys when you factor in like when they're eligible. Right. And that you can't say that about, that's what you can't say about the Big 12 or the ACC. But I actually think the ACC, if Cal's, I know they just lost San Diego State, is probably a little better. So I would rank the ACC slightly above the Big 12. And maybe I'm just giving more credit to like Miami, Florida State. I mean, Georgia Tech, clearly pretty good.
Yeah, I think the Big 12, I think it's good for college football that we have one conference that's got a bunch of teams that's competitive. You got 8 teams deep. Like you talk TCU, Arizona
it's a fun
State.
team. It's a fun
It's going to be
conference
a phenomenal. Yeah, but if you're the commissioner and he's been super outspoken that they want to get multiple teams in the playoff, you're going to have to hope that Arizona State somehow, some way, not the booster of the level of Texas Tech, but you got to hope that Arizona State somehow gets a lot of money. You got to hope that maybe, I don't know, another Texas team in the Big 12, or maybe Colorado starts to get more money. You got to hope some of those powerhouses in the Big 12 start to get more money where you can get more bids in the college football playoff. Like that's the only way that the Big 12 can, survive to the level of the Big 10 and the SEC. But man, it's this weekend is going to be insane. Like if you have a wedding this weekend, the Ryder Cup, you got all these college football games, you got the NFL. I'm sorry. I don't think I could go to a game. I don't think I could schedule a wedding in the fall. Like you had your wedding in the spring. Like, can you imagine going to a wedding right now? No shot. No chance.
I don't. I haven't been to a fall wedding my entire life. I actually went to one, college buddy, and I left, I think, like Sunday morning at like 5 a.m. I left the wedding before like the party even got going. I'm like, I got to get home and go to bed so I can catch my flight. So I'm with you. I do think the Big 12, if TCU wins this game and runs the table and you get TCU playing an undefeated Texas Tech and whoever, I do think they could possibly get 2 teams because Sonny Dykes has proven that like he runs a real program, and obviously Texas Tech is clearly legit. That would be their path. Like you can't lose to Mississippi State and ASU's done unless they get the automatic bid by winning, run the table and then win the conference championship game. But like once you lose to Mississippi State, like your margin, you have no more. You're done unless you control your own destiny.
Because last year the Big 12 had like a bunch of teams with 2 or 3 losses. It seems like this year with Texas Tech, they have a bunch of unranked opponents. I think they got to go at Arizona State, which I guess could be kind of a challenging game for Texas Tech. But the way their defensive line looked against Utah, which is supposed to be the best offensive line in the country, let alone the Big 12. Like, I feel like they're just going to bully Arizona State in that game, too. You're right.
I feel like TCU beats Arizona State this week.
I love Hoover. It stinks because I'm kind of in Arizona State, obviously growing up here, and it's been cool to see Arizona State kind of take that next step and the Valley kind of rally around a college football team where it's more pro dominant. Even the pro fan bases aren't even as loyal as what you see in Philly and Boston and San Francisco or wherever too. But TCU as a road dog, yeah, I agree. I think I would lean TCU. That offense is just so explosive with Sonny Dykes. I mean, you saw what they did to UNC and SMU, but it's gonna be a fun game. My last thing, I gotta put this in real quick because I'm a fan of the show. Obviously, I watch John Middlekauff 3 and Out. Subscribe. What do you think about Will Compton's bald head? Would you got any advice for Will Compton? Because I saw he'd been tweeting about, what should I lotion my head? Obviously, I'm not bald. I got some good hair myself. Thank God for my mom. But I was just curious because you haven't really talked about Will Compton gaining another bald brother.
Well, he won't be bald long, right? He's had to do it because he lost the bet. Which I get he's loyal to Nebraska, but Nebraska doesn't beat decent teams, let alone good ones. I can't speak to guys with hair shaving their head. They have a lot more follicles on top, but the key, you got to moisturize it like you would your face. So you wash your head like you wash your face, right? You just, like a normal human being. If you're going to bed and you don't need a shower or whatever, and you just wash your face before you go to sleep, you have to wash your whole head. Like it's all one. It's like the beard just extends, and then you have to moisturize so it's not dry, and then you get ingrown hairs. That first cut, because he's never shaved it, had to be just pretty special how close it was. When you're like me and you shave, I don't shave as much because I'm just a podcaster, but if I had a real job and was going into work and seeing people, I'd be shaving like every 18, every day and a half or whatever. He had to get the closest shave humanly possible. So it has to feel incredible. You just got to hydrate because your skin can get dry really fast, and then you got problems.
Do you use bar soap? I know SVP uses a bar of soap.
I don't use bar soap. It's fucking 2025. Bar soap? Bar soap.
That's what SVP uses. I just thought that was a universal bald thing.
Are you in jail? Like, I mean, you got a million options. No, I don't use bar soap. I don't use bar soap in general. I mean, I'm a grown up with, use a pump bottle of like normal body wash with a loofah. This isn't like my dad in like 1983. I mean, we got options here. If you're using bar soap,
my bad.
If you're a bar soap guy, are you a bar soap guy?
I mean, I use it on my occasional. Yeah, I got body wash right now, but
do you have a loofah bar? You just use the loofah.
I got the loofah. Yeah, I got the loofah. Yeah.
What could justify in 2025 using a bar soap and not like a body wash with a loofah that's easier to use?
Well, I heard SVP use it, so I just thought it was a universal bald guy thing. Maybe he's kind of an older, old-fashioned guy.
He's a little older than you think, and bar soap to me would just my whole face would dry. It would fall off. So I couldn't. I haven't used a bar soap beside at a hotel, and even typically I bring like a little body wash with me. That's a little hack.
So you just use shampoo?
No, I haven't used shampoo since I've been bald. You don't
Save
use
money.
You don't use shampoo. What would I need shampoo for? My chest hair? Like, I mean, I don't. There's no hair. I mean, no. Because part of shampoo is to keep your hairs soft, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that, I mean, and dandruff or whatever, but
the conditioner keeps your hair
those aren't
soft.
problems that I get. So it's just face wash and body wash. No shampoo.
You learn something new every day. That's awesome.
Okay, adios, Jackson. Good talk.